Clubhouse.
And what about my children?
Pick a boarding school. I'll pay for that.
You know, their father needs to be a part of this decision.
Oh, no. I am selling his house, too. There are no more free rides for anyone. Your options are stay here with me, or you figure out your life on your own.
What the fuck did I do to make you hate me so much, Mom?
Abby, you don't understand that this is the most love I have ever shown you.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of The Madison, the newest series from Taylor Sheridan. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 3 of The Madison, Watch Her Fall. Tonight's episode was written by Taylor Sheridan and directed by Christina Alexandra Voros, which I learned she'll actually be directing all 6 episodes, so it'll be the same information every week.
Just a community note, please join us over on Facebook in the Yellowstone 1923, 1883, 4 Sixes, and the Madison Discussion and News Group to discuss The Madison and the whole universe of Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone shows, which, man, Mike, they're just stacking up. Every time we have to change the Facebook group name to add more.
The biggest reason not to do Marshalls, really, is just because I have to make the name longer again.
Oh, my goodness. And then people are asking, like, hey, where's the 4 Sixes? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong girl. I don't know. They just told us it was coming. I don't know.
We should delete 4 Sixes and save ourselves some room.
The funniest thing is in my pantry, I have a packet of chili mix. That's the 4 Sixes chili mix. So they went ahead and did that, but there's no show. I think that's amazing and hilarious. Just a reminder to everyone, we assume you've watched this episode. There will be tons of spoilers. We're not going to go step by step through the episode. This is not a recap. However, if you have not watched and you don't want to be spoiled, please go watch the episode, come on back, and then listen to all of our insight.
Who is the Watch Her Fall? I think when I read this title just before watching the show or after watching the first episode, I think I would have assumed it was about Stacy, but it turns out in this episode, Watch Her Fall is actually about Abigail. This episode gives us more backstory, background, and a look into how these parents, Stacy and Preston, view their children, in particular, how they view Abigail, which makes me wonder if we're going to get the same kind of treatment for Paige. Just before we get into it, I was curious how you thought this episode was structured and your just kind of general sense. Like, did you walk away from this feeling like you understood who these two were as parents?
Boy, that's a big old question because no, I don't really. Maybe I should say it like this. Not that I don't understand, but I certainly don't relate to how they're dealing with their kids. I'm a big subscriber to parent the kid that's standing in front of you, meaning like not everything has to be quote unquote fair. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but it's like whatever that kid needs you to be for that day, you need to like listen to them and deal with them. There's not sort of like an overarching, like these are the rules and they apply to everybody at all times. However, I really felt like they were like wildly uneven in how they looked at Abby and Paige. And I'm not sure, because of the small amount of time we spent with these two women, I am not sure if that is earned and warranted here, or if they just had a lifetime of something that we've not seen, where they feel like Abby is so just flighty and out there and just doing her own thing. I mean, of course, we get the Sheridan, she's a dreamer, Margaret, like all that business, right? We got that biz. For all of you who don't remember, that's 1883 for you. There's a whole dreamer part about this. Abby, at least the way she's been played in the last 2 episodes, I don't get that from her. She does not seem like a whimsical person. She doesn't seem like her head's in the clouds. She's the one making breakfast. She's the one minding the kids, doing everything that she's supposed to be doing. Paige is the one who seems so much more flighty to me, but very clear to me that they think Paige is like the one who can handle everything. Very unclear. They've got to show us more for me to understand.
Let's play this first flashback clip, and so we start getting a little bit of insight on what you're talking about.
I think it's time that we let her figure things out for herself.
Honey, I'm afraid that time has passed. We throw her out to sink or swim, we're just drowning her kids with her.
I don't know. Just thinking about when we were young and crammed into a shoebox of an apartment with no furniture, rationing ramen noodles.
Ah, the good old days.
Yeah, they were. I mean, what would you trade them for?
Apartment with heat might have been nice.
No, I mean it. I mean, if you had parents that you could run to every time life got hard, would you be the man you are today?
Probably not. But Abby isn't a man.
What? Whoa, wait, what's that supposed to mean?
Easy, I'm not picking a fight here.
Yeah, well, you let me decide that.
Paige could handle it. She'd find a way. But Abby just doesn't have it in her, honey. She's a dreamer. Big dreams with absolutely no drive to see them through. And if we had remained poor, that would not have changed.
So, I don't know, what are you saying? She gets to remain a child for the rest of her life?
She remains our responsibility because she does not have the belief to be responsible for herself. She never has.
No, the word you mean is discipline.
No, honey. I mean belief. You gotta have that first. How can you have discipline about realizing a dream you don't believe you're capable of achieving? We can love her all we want, honey. We will never make her love herself. She's the only one who can fix it.
There is a lot to unpack there.
My Lord, there is. I was like falling back, like, what?
I know, it's just like body blow after body blow of like every sentence literally needs to be examined. But before that, we actually need to take a look at how Stacy views her daughters, because that conversation, and the clip was just too long to include everything. But she starts that by complaining to Preston, as soon as you're gone, every time you're gone, your daughters invent a crisis. Okay, the invented crisis here, and I'm using air quotes, is that she's getting divorced from Dallas, this husband. I don't think that's an invented crisis. It sounds like it was a long time coming. I think it was a very kind of negative or pejorative way to speak about your kids, as if, like, they come up with these flights of fancy pretend things to be complaining about when daddy has left the city.
I think you said a really key word there. I think you called them kids. And the funny thing about that is that they're not kids.
Right.
I mean, even whenever this flashback was happening, I mean, she was old enough that she was getting a divorce, which means that both of these girls were already born and all this kind of stuff. So she's not a kid. So there does seem to be some sort of like stunted growth here. It reminds me very much of Schitt's Creek, where it's like they're a certain age and everything, but that has nothing to do with how they're looked at by their parents. It has nothing to do with what their relationship is with the world at all. I did bristle when it's this idea that invented. I mean, maybe that if she could have said it in a way that was like, they always seem to come running to me every time you're not here and dumping all their problems on me. Okay, maybe that's more accurate. And that probably does happen, you know? Maybe if mom and dad are very busy with their societal events and their things that they're doing, then maybe when dad's out of town, that is the time when you have some more mom FaceTime.
Abigail referred to her father when she was laying out her sister in the first episode as therapist, among other things that he served in their lives. So maybe it's less that they come running as if they would never do when he's around, but maybe typically they just take all of their issues to him, so that when he's gone, now she has to step in and be the one who listens.
So either way, though, we're basically saying the same thing. Like, the issues existed,
right?
But they just weren't in Stacy's lap. Whenever, he's not there, then she feels like they're just being invented, which, again, makes me wonder, like, did Preston and Stacy not talk? Because even this conversation that's happening right now, it's not like Preston saying, honey, I've known about this divorce situation for 3 years or something like that, as if it's news to you, Stacy, but I've been therapizing with her.
He does say it's a long time coming. I mean, he knew it anyway, but Stacy saying this is invented, that really just was jarring. I was like, what? Are you just
She's
very checked
dismissive. Out? She's very dismissive of these girls.
Dismissive or checked out on what was going on in her daughter's life. So that's right off the top. She makes her an unreliable narrator, I think, right off the bat to me. As you mentioned before we played the clip, we set up this dynamic where Paige can make it. If you took away all the money, they feel like Paige can weather the storm. Now, we do see her in this episode working her phone. She's clearly setting up some kind of PR publicist event, and she's doing, unlike her sister who's unsuccessfully trying to get rental cars delivered to her on the side of a road, Paige seems to be successfully negotiating work from Montana. So maybe that, but I agree with you. Up until this point, Paige has been very flighty or whiny, or at least shallow seeming. That's the word I think I want. I think she seems more shallow, whereas Abigail has been momming. She's been making sure her daughters are eating and kind of taking care of her house, and also taking care of her mother. She's the one who's been checking in on her mother over and over again, or being the whipping child for her mother over and over again. And she had the whole gluten history of bread conversation in the last episode. She seems much more with it insofar as far as acting like an adult you would expect. So this was a shock to me to hear this parent view.
So here's the other thing about Paige. Beyond what you think about her personality, she has not shown us to be resourceful, which is basically the big question mark here. Who can get things done when the going gets tough? Paige cries and whines. She cried for her mom. She cried for her husband. She didn't go figure out the baking soda situation. She laid up in the loft and cried. And we're supposed to think that that's the resourceful one, not Abby. I don't know. You're going to have to show it to us on screen, guys. Like just telling us this woman can do all these things and can make it on her own. Sorry. All I saw her do is ignore, blame, and act like she's helpless.
I agree. You need to show us more, because what you've shown us so far doesn't gel with what we're hearing here. So the thing that I thought of was maybe they're saying from their New York City skyscraper apartment, Paige is the one who is resourceful. She knows which stores are open and when in the village, and she knows how to get the Hermes scarf to her client. Whereas Abigail is unemployed in the city and apparently does nothing, and neither does her husband. And what are these dreams? She's this big dreamer with no drive. Preston says, give us an example. Like, that would have been a perfect place. Like, you remember when she wanted to save all the puppies or something like that?
Or is she like an artist? Or is she like something that they, although, with the Met Gala and all that kind of stuff, they obviously have some support of the arts and wanting to be a part of that world. So like calling her a dreamer, like I'm very curious about what they deem being sort of like, and I'm using flighty and stuff in place of the word dreamer. Maybe that's not fair, but they certainly don't think being a dreamer is something you want to be, or something that is good to be. That's very clear to me.
Not without the drive anyway to try and make it happen.
I guess that's true, yeah. What do you think about this Abby's not a man comment from Preston? I was scratching my head like real hard on that. Like, I'm not willing to go straight to misogyny. I mean, I'm not, because I'm like sort of like, well, wait, get over everybody being like upset that he said it, but what does it mean?
Well, that was the problem. He never went back and explained what he meant by it. He says this line, she bristles, and then they didn't. What did you mean by that? Because I'm not sure. I mean,
I don't know what it means.
There are plenty of women with drive, or there are plenty of women who have adversity who overcome it.
But there's plenty of men who don't have drive. What
Dallas,
are we talking about?
Apparently.
Yes. Right, exactly. So I'm very confused by that comment. I'd like to like put that on our bulletin board as like, okay, it's the second time that we're hearing this kind of comparison to a man, but I haven't figured out what Preston's point of view is on that. And does that mean you're weaker? Does that mean you're not expected to work? Like, I don't know what he means. I don't know what this is about.
And if the entirety of it is because the writers or Taylor Sheridan wanted a line where he can then be like, don't get your panties in a ruffle because I said something like that, then that's just obnoxious and uncalled for. What other purpose has it served? Like, that was an incomplete thought, as if like someone didn't read the back of the page where the line continued or the explanation continued. Very out of nowhere, but coming on last week's mansplaining about the history of men versus women and multitasking.
And we all know that was wrong.
It's a red flag comment. That's 2 out of 3 now of these kind of misogyny-esque comments. So,
but here's the other thing that I want want to point out. If this is their we don't have a fight, we've never had a fight dynamic. So what it means is that y'all drop bombs on each other with no follow-up. That's what not fighting is. You say stuff like, Abby's not a man. She says, what does that mean? You say, I don't want to fight. And then comment dropped. I didn't really even love Stacey's like, I'll decide, like if we're in a fight. Guys, we're getting when we talked about decision making and all that kind of stuff, like what is going on? It just seems like they lob grenades at each other and say these things that, again, if you look at that entire conversation, Stacey's like, I feel like we need to approach our kids differently. And that's a really nice way to say it. What she really said is we need to cut this kid off, right? Mm-hmm. But a really nice way to say it is we need to reconsider, given her age, given her stage of life, how we're supporting her. And if we're just enabling this continuous bad, decision making or whatever it is she thinks she's doing, because guys, I have no information on what she's doing wrong. He doesn't really answer that except for just be like, I think we should just keep doing what we're doing. Anyway, let's move on. That's not a discussion. Right. That's not like a back and forth where we come to a conclusion. That's two people who said two different opinions and then, quote, don't fight, and like nothing comes of it. Although it seems like Preston makes the call, right? Because in all honesty, so far as we know, from that conversation to when she flips out in the car at Abby, they clearly do continue to support her. So I'm saying Stacey's the decision maker, but does Preston just keep doing what he's doing and ignore Stacey?
They seem to have very diametrically opposed attitudes, at least at this stage of the girls' lives and their lives, about how to continue parenting here, because she says in this first clip, let her sink, and he's like, no, because he says we would just be drowning her and the grandkids along with it.
Oh, no, he doesn't say the grandkids, which I also bristled at. He said we would drown her children, as if they'd never met them.
Right.
Certainly they weren't related to them, because what a normal person would say is exactly what you just said, because that's the key to pulling on the heartstrings, right? You certainly wouldn't drown your own grandchildren. Like, that's how it's supposed to sound. But no, her children. Like, we don't know these kids. What?
All of that is not even the crux, I think, as far as it applies to this episode, of what this flashback, the point of this flashback was. The point of it was this final conversation, this belief versus discipline. Preston is arguing that you can't achieve a dream if you don't even believe in yourself. Stacey's trying to make the argument of what you mean actually is that she lacks the discipline to get anything done. And then they ended by saying Preston is on the side of only Abby can fix her life, and Stacey seemingly feels like she can fix it. And I think this episode is about her, now that Preston is gone, pursuing her path of I can fix Abigail's life, which will take us to the next clip. But did belief versus discipline? I think there is something there, that it is hard to achieve a dream if you don't even believe in yourself that you're capable of doing the thing. I think that is legitimate, but I don't know how deep that is. That feels like something that may be more puddle than ocean, though it feels deepish.
If you really want to see a dream come true, there is work behind every dream, right? And in order to feel like you're moving forward on a goal, I'm just talking this through, you would have to have some amount of discipline, but you'd also have to have some amount of belief in yourself, some amount of self-esteem that, like, I am capable of taking this next step and I'm capable of getting to this finish line, right? So I don't actually think that they disagree. I honestly think that discipline and belief have to come together. You and I deal with this with teenagers in terms of like them saying they want something, whatever, this organization. I want to be a part of this sport. I want to be a part of whatever, right? And then when you look at them, you're like, but what are you doing every day to actually get there? And that's where as parents, you sort of just sit back and be like, whatever. Like, is this actually your dream? Is this actually your goal? Because you don't seem to be taking any steps. And that's where the discipline comes in, right? If this was really your passion, which is a different word than all these words than discipline and belief, you'd wake up every day with the drive to want to get it done. And I'm looking at you, Jacob, way back at 1883. Like, he had the passion to keep pushing and pushing and pushing to make it happen, no matter what the sacrifices were, no matter how much it physically, mentally, emotionally hurt everybody. We're going to keep pushing on. You have to have that every single day in theory, right? And I'm just saying in theory, because maybe in this day and age, it's like every third day, if you have that passion, maybe that's good enough to make good progress. There's something lacking in the words of belief versus discipline. I think there's something in between there, which is passion and like devotion to the project, which is a little bit different, because I don't feel like I'm a very disciplined person, but I do feel like I'm a very passionate person. I really care about getting it done, but I'm not somebody who's going to say, I'm going to get it done between 7 and 8 tomorrow morning and stick to that schedule. I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to get it done how I get it done. You know, right. I don't know how you feel, because I feel like you are a more disciplined person. I joke with you all the time when I say, like, you can say, I know this project's going to take me 2 or 3 hours to sit down and do. And I like literally do a backbend in my brain, because I'm like, every time I sit down to do a project, I could never say this thing was going to take me longer than 20 minutes, or I would never even start, because my brain cannot even when we sit down with these podcasts, I'll tell you, okay, this is going to be like 1 hour. And at the end, it'll be like 2 or 2.5 hours. And I laugh to myself, because if you told me at the beginning it was going to take 2.5 hours, I'd be like, I can't do it. I just can't. Like, I don't have enough patience. I don't have enough attention span. There's something in all of that like discipline versus passion. I am passionate about doing this podcast. You are disciplined into doing this podcast. Those are two different feelings, but I think you have to have all of that.
I think you can get something done by being passionate about it, but you need conviction, though, to put the passion.
Oh, now you're introducing a new word. Okay, where does conviction play in?
Because I don't think you necessarily need discipline. I think discipline is just one path to reach your goal that you are feeling passionate about. I think discipline is just a word for organization and structure. It's one way to get there. If anyone is old enough to remember, like, the Family Circle cartoons, when Billy would go, like, go next door. Circle
or circus? Circus, right? Family Circus? Family Circle.
Maybe Bill Keane and his kids. Maybe Family Circus and or Circle. Anyway, his mom would give him a task, and he would go all through the goddamn neighborhood just to go next door. Well, he achieved his goal, and he was passionate about it, but he wasn't necessarily very disciplined. It doesn't lessen that he got there. Billy's little conviction to go through the neighborhood got him next door to Mr. Wilson to drop off whatever it was. Man, I'm going deep on this cartoon.
Yeah, you really are. It is circus. I already peeped it up.
Mr. Wilson was actually Dennis the Menace. Now I'm
complaining. Yeah, but anyway, all over the place with your analogies here.
The idea, discipline is just one path to achieve your passion. What I'm hearing here is, like, she hates herself, so she can never achieve a dream. It's not even about discipline. It's just that she's got some level of self-loathing that is actually preventing her from doing anything about putting her dreams into effect, which is a whole other concept that I haven't seen. I don't know that we've seen self-loathing.
Well, here's the only time we have, and we've spent almost 3 hours with them. I'm going to say 3 hours, although I know the run times on things were not quite an hour each. 3 hours with them. The only time I can think of that is when she said, I'm Dad's biggest disappointment.
You're right.
Okay. That's the one and only. But the rest of the time, I mean, I'm looking at you, Van Davis. Would you say that you were talking to a woman who didn't have self-esteem, who didn't have good confidence? Like, to me, she was pretty confident in the stuff she was saying and doing with him. So I don't know. I don't get this total, like, I'm so shy. I'm so, down on myself. And maybe you and I are using a lens that is too narrow. Maybe you can be a very confident person, show a very confident side of yourself, but internally you just think you're terrible. I think you and I both know people like that. I have a huge issue with how differently they treat their children. And I know that I started this by saying, parent the child in front of you. I understand that sounds like that's not very fair. But what I mean is, my kids are very close in age. I have twins, and then my son is 10 and a half months younger. They're all the same age, but they're at different stages and different levels of support needed. And so for me, it would be unfair for me to have a blanket rule that if you do, if you step out of line like this, then this is the consequence. Like, first of all, that consequence is not going to work for all three of the kids. And also, it's not fair because not everybody is able to hit those same, marks. And I'm not willing to kind of just put that sort of uniform feel on them. It seems to me like they have two very different lenses that they look at Abby and Paige. Paige does seem like at the end of the day, at the end of this episode, she does seem like she is doing things. Like I'm glad they had that phone call with her job. It did seem like she was capable of doing things. It was a breath of fresh air that she was capable of doing some things.
And opening up herself to, about going into the river, and she does take up Russell on the baking soda. So she's been reluctant to adjust to where she is right now. But I think this episode showed us that she is at least trying. And the phone call, I think, went a long way of saying, you remember when we said that she's capable here? This is what we meant. That's the end of Flashback 1 and kind of setting up this episode of Preston said, we're already down this road. We have to keep it as it is. I can't, no sinking. Gotta keep them afloat. Stacey came out of that conversation of, I can fix it. I'm not willing to let Abigail fix it. I will intercede here. I think she fundamentally disagreed for however many years with Preston, and now she's going to seize her opportunity to try and force things the way she thinks they should be done. So let's play this second clip, The Ultimatum.
You should stay with me.
No, I am not moving to the Upper East Side where everyone is married.
I mean here.
Here?
I told you what I'm doing.
Mom.
Abby, you have never been challenged in your life. This would be a challenge.
Mom, stop.
And challenge is
Stop.
exactly what you
are
need.
not moving to Montana with no running water.
We have running water. We have no sewage.
How so hard?
The debate about what I will do is over. This is a debate about what you will do and what I will do as a result. I will sell your house, which is my house, and as executor of the trust, I will cease all payments to you. You want to live in New York, you make it work.
And what about my children?
Pick a boarding school, I'll pay for that.
Their father needs to be a part of this decision.
Oh,
Mom,
no, I am selling his house too. There are no more free rides for anyone. Your options are stay here with me, or you figure out your life on your own.
What the fuck did I do to make you hate me so much, Mom?
Abby, you don't understand that this is the most love I have ever shown you.
Yowza. I've been on some bad, awkward car rides in my life, but this was not great.
I can tell you that this felt wild to me because, okay, so listeners, I've shared with you guys that I have 3 special needs kids. Grandparents on both sides of the family have been very generous and very helpful. We have adaptive things that we need for the children. They have stepped up in a variety of ways to help monetarily, okay, and support and encouragement and all that stuff too, but financially. If I was told 3 days after my mom died, which this was all real, my mom did pass away 2 years ago. If I was driving along with my dad and he said, Caroline, you have to move to the lake house with me. And I said, what about the kids? And the answer was, we can send them away to a boarding school. They're not invited. Clearly, they are not invited to live in Montana. I don't want to hear talk about she asked about the schools to Kestrel and Cade. Nope. She said in this conversation, they can go to boarding school. I will put them in a boarding school. So not only are you cutting off all my financial ties, you're forcing me to now move in with my parent, and I no longer have access to my children 3 days after my parent dies. This sounds insane. Anyone who is Team Stacey after this conversation, I am frightened for what you think is fair parenting or what you think would be acceptable to expect of your kids. Should there be a plan? Should there be a tapering where you say, Abby, you have 6 months to find a job, payments will cease happening, or they will diminish, every month less and less and less, and you're going to have to cut back and sell things and do stuff, whatever. Okay, put a plan in place. Separating her from her kids, and again, their father does have a say. I mean, Stacey can say whatever she wants on the house, but like custody wise and where they go to school, you can speak to this better than I can. But I believe both parents gets a chance to say. And if one was like, no way on boarding school, the grandparent doesn't get to just decide that.
This is super drastic, and I agree with everything you just said, but I think there's also another component here too. This is explicitly in every way, shape, and form against what your dear beloved husband, who you're doing all this for, presumably to honor and make up for the time that you didn't come out here and see this while he was alive. This is not what he would want. I think at least with your idea of tapering or setting a timetable, there's a reason why in 30 years of coming out to this cabin and in however many years the girls have been alive, because ages of everyone on the show are a little bit all over the place, he didn't force the issue. I found it a little disrespectful to his memory that she's taking this black and white task. And it is out of nowhere. And it is, let's say, generously a week after their father died, her husband died, and only, 3, maybe 4 days at most, I think it's probably more like 3, that you've been out here. What I didn't include in that conversation was Abigail going at her mother, being like, I have no idea how to move on from a failed marriage. I don't know how you could possibly move on from a perfect marriage like you had, but Mom, this is not moving on. This is hiding. And I think that is a very fair comment for Abigail, a grown woman, to make to her mother, who is acting, I think, very irrationally, fueled by grief and anger and just feeling helpless in the moment. I think she thinks this is something she can do and fix and be proactive on, because I think every other aspect of her life right now feels out of fucking control. And that is not how you should make decisions. I am all for her moving to Montana and building a cabin and living a life out here and honoring Preston's memory and living a simpler, not New York City life. I'm all for that. But you should not be making that decision on day 3 of being out here.
And you should not be trying to hold people hostage and send your grandchildren, away. I think about it from the grandkids' sake. So their parents are getting divorced. Their grandfather just died, and now they're going to be shipped off. I'm sorry, this is the start of a million different, Harry Potter / I don't know, what was it? James and the Giant Peach, or Matilda, or some one of those where your parents are being forced away from you, and you have to go live off in some boarding school. And I know Harry Potter's a good boarding school, don't get me wrong, but I mean the whole concept of being shipped out, losing your family and being shipped out all at once.
When it's all you've ever known.
It's very wicked stepmother kind of talk.
It's very wicked stepmother, because this is all these kids have known. Even it's all Abigail has known, and she's in her 30s, but it's all these young girls have known, and they are 11 and 14, 15, 16, or 17 years old.
Unclear,
depending on the hour. This is a diabolical ultimatum.
I think Abby's response, where she said, "What the fuck did I do?" That is literally though exactly what I would say to my parent. I would be like, what in the world did I do that you are suddenly turning on me like a venomous snake? And it does go back to let's go back to the whole thing about how we were are these their biological children? Because and I know that it doesn't make sense that it's not, because everything we've been told was they were together from being 17 and 19. Clearly, your comment 2 episodes ago about Stacey eating ramen noodles, I was wrong. Clearly, they were self-made somehow together. Saying things like her children instead of our grandchildren, calling him Preston instead of Dad. We're getting all kinds of coded words that in TV land means this is a step parent. Whether Preston's the step parent, or now I'm starting to feel is Stacey the step parent? Doesn't make sense. That makes no sense to this plot. This is the type of antics you get from a parent who has not been there the whole time and who's coming in and decided that they know better whatever that looks like, however that looks like. I'm not trying to, but like for all the step parents out there, by no means do I think that step parents are evil people in any form or fashion.
I think there are plenty of biological parents who are also checked out. I think it's the being checked out and stepping back in.
But in pop culture, in stories, step parents are often the one who comes in and upsets the apple cart. Whatever the biological parent was cool with, suddenly the step parent says, now that they're gone, no more of that. That is Snow White.
Later on, Paige is going to be on the phone during that work call, and she's going to say, I had a death in the family. I'm sorry, if it's not a death in the family, it's your dad. Like, my dad died. I get, maybe she doesn't want to show weakness on a work call or some kind of thing like that. Again, just phrasing that doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's so cold. It's so cold and so remote.
I honestly thought there was going to be a follow-up comment where the next thing we heard her say was my dad.
Right.
In terms of like where the natural other person might say, oh, was this person very close to you or something like that? Like, even though I think you're right, work calls are more clinical than that, like you're more sterile than that. However, the way that she said, I have a death in the family, it seemed natural for her next words that we heard for her to say would be like my father, my dad. Like it was, so to clarify, like, I'm going to be out a bit, you know?
I don't know. This was so...
bonkers.
It was bonkers. So now let's fill in the gap of how the rest of the episode plays out. We don't, this is not a review podcast, but just to hit the bolts of it, she's going to get out of the car. She's going to be unsuccessfully trying to negotiate getting rental cars out to her on Highway 89 where they are, which, by the way, they say she's on 89, go pick up on Cargo 89. Cade calls his friend Sheriff Van Davis. Later on, he's going to say, you're on 287, I'll follow you, just make the turn on your road. 287, 89 for this part of Montana run parallel to each other, so I don't know how they're both on two separate roads. But that's not important. Anyway, she's going to spend the rest of the night over at the Mason farm with Cade and his wife and their kids and Van Davis. And then she's going to come back. They're going to make out. The kids are going to go, ooh, and there's going to be lots of giggling. Okay. The giggling and the laughing is going to launch Stacy into this final flashback.
And they need to split tuition or place them in public school.
That's not happening.
Well, maybe it should happen.
In the village? Come on, honey. Look, this is a win because the court isn't dictating what we do. We're just going to have to cover the gap when the girls are with him.
He hasn't worked a day in his life.
That's partly our fault. We did. We enabled it.
You're enabling it now. If we're always around to pick her up, she's never going to learn to stand on her own. For God's sakes, she's 33 years old. We need to let her fall down.
Honey, I can't do that. She may be the oldest, but she's still my baby. I can't. I can't take that risk. Picking her up when she falls is my job.
Told you, honey.
I can't believe they ended this episode with her doing I told you so to her dead husband. Because your abandoned child figured out a way to get a ride home that you left on the side of the road after you gave an insane ultimatum. What do you think you actually proved here today, Stacy? That she's not dead? Awesome. That's fantastic. But that's not because of her. That's because the kindness of strangers who everyone is suspicious of.
Well, and honestly, did she fix her problem or did Cade send Van? And Van fixed her problem. So Abby didn't do anything.
Right.
So it was all odd. It was a weird conclusion that she came up with because here's the deal. Stacy doesn't know that Cade called Van. So in her brain, Abby got herself back to the ranch, right? That's all she saw. But maybe that's part of the issue here is that Stacy clearly doesn't know what is really going on in Abby's life. Like, that's a tiny little microcosm for, like, she's in this terrible marriage. You know, all this stuff. Like, maybe you don't know the day-to-day. Maybe Dallas said she's not allowed to work. Maybe she felt like she needed to physically protect her children during the day. Like, I don't freaking know. I don't know this guy. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why, for as old as the oldest grandkid is, They haven't had an issue with the fact that this man hasn't worked or Abby hasn't worked for all those years. That part is like, I'm raising my eyebrow. Like, Stacey, you really had your head in the sand. And I get that you were complaining to Preston. I understand that. All of a sudden, it's like, this is like, you're going to act on everything. I don't know. Again, the timing of the whole thing makes me crazy because you're not supposed to make big decisions right after somebody passes or right after a big life event anyway. This is like the biggest life decisions, cutting people out of your life, sending grandchildren away, giving ultimatums. Like, these aren't like small decisions. Like, I think I'm going to move out to Montana for 6 months and see how I like it. Like, that would even be a big decision. It's not even like that. She's selling everything. She's telling the kids what they have to do. Like, or just Abby. Let's be clear, in the unfair department. Like, clearly Paige and Russell are also living off of them, and I don't hear any ultimatums coming that way.
She has a job, so obviously she's taking care of it.
And Russell apparently has some sort of job.
Some kind of equity finance job, right.
But they're clearly living beyond their means is like still
Preston made it very clear in the flashbacks in the first episode that it was my money. They're living on my money. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they're not running owning two apartments, one for Abigail, one for Dallas level of using my money. But they're definitely, Preston was not saying Abigail only when he was talking about the girls suck all of my money in that first episode. There's a couple more things that we have to talk about here. One is earlier in that clip, and I had to cut it out, Stacey makes a comment just before the ultimatum and the conversation spirals out of control. She's like, man, they really make men different out here. And Abigail says that. And Stacey says, well, since your father's the only real man you've ever met, at 33, 35, 36, 37 years old, however old we're saying Abigail is, because, again, it seems inconsistent. A woman in her 30s, you're saying your father's the only real man you've ever met? How do you know? How do you know the men she's met? Maybe based on this Dallas. Let's talk about Dallas. The only two things we know about Dallas so far are from the second flashback. We hear Preston say, he's a nice guy. He's a dilettante. He's not employed, but he's a nice guy who shouldn't really be stripped from the grandkids. That's how I took that conversation. And then we have the conversation between Van and Abigail at the Mason Ranch, where he asks her, I don't think out of left field, is he a good dad, considering they were talking about being divorced parents? She doesn't answer. She's just more taken aback that he would ask the question, which I don't know why she was. He goes, I think it's interesting you haven't answered the question. I also think it's interesting. I don't know what that means. Is he a good dad? Preston seemed to think he was a nice guy who was living by someone else's means. What is the deal with Dallas? Is he, did you take that as he's not a good dad and she don't want to talk about it, or he is actually a good dad and we were just both unemployed losers, so it didn't work?
I honestly don't know. And you know the vibe I'm getting on this one? I'm getting Lorelai Christopher vibes from Gilmore Girls. Like I'm getting, he got me pregnant at 20, so we got married. He wasn't the love of my life. He wasn't the one I was supposed to end up with. And if he clearly had money himself coming from apparently his parents or whatever, because if he's never had a job, then someone was funding his life before Preston was funding his life. So it seems like there's money on the other side of the family, like from Dallas's side of the family as well. Some of this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would Preston be paying for Dallas's house? Why would it be a foregone conclusion that they would need to fund everything going on when the children are at Dallas's house, when clearly Dallas's family has money too, unless Dallas was cut off? But again, we have to make all kinds of weird
we just have so little information, but
leaps.
The bits of information we get just don't make sense. It's all unreliable narrator feeling because none of it really fits together. The jigsaw puzzle looks all fucked up in my head because we're getting all this weird conflicting information or statements that are supposed to maybe mean something that, no, you didn't actually answer it. Like, she's not a man, or you haven't answered if he's a good dad, or you're hiding and you didn't address that. Like,
you know what the thing is that a little bit bugs me is that there's so many statements that are said with such absolute conviction, with zero backup. Like, this is how it is. No evidence. But this is how
like she's a dreamer.
Like, yeah, she's a dreamer. What's her big dream? I would love to know. I mean, don't you think by episode 3, there would have been even a snide comment out of Paige like, how come you didn't ever start that business you were supposed to start? Or how come you don't get back to dance like you said you were going to do? Or whatever it is that is making her, termed or deemed a dreamer. What is it? But then also, Stacey clearly doesn't have all of the information in her mom packet, yet she makes these comments. She makes these like, this is the way it is. And also, I barely know my kids.
I cannot tell you, and I can't get, I've already brought it up. I had to say it again, and I promise I'll move on. I cannot tell you how off-putting I found her "told you, honey" at the end was. You're sitting over here in this other cabin. You don't actually know anything. You didn't even know your daughter was home or next door. But you think you have figured it all out, all to give your perfect marriage. You had such a perfect marriage that you need to give an "I told you so" to the dead guy. Stacey, I gotta tell you, girl, I just not working for me.
Wait, and let's even like say this. I believe that what she's wanting Abby to do is to stand on her own 2 feet and to like find her personal whatever it is, right? Like whether it's a job, whether it's whatever this dreamer passion is of hers, because we are unclear about whether that is actually employment related or if that's something else, if she's a creative of some sort and she just needs to do something that we're just not understanding. But the thing that doesn't make any sense is like, it seems like the fact that Abby was like kissing with Van and the fact that they were like all excited about that. Are you telling me, Stacey, that the "told you so" is because she found another guy? Because that's the only thing you have. Or is it simply what you said? She literally got herself home and she didn't. But let's pretend, since Stacey's going to act like this is what happened, that she literally made it from the side of the road
she didn't
to
get
the
murdered.
ranch. Is that "I told you so"?
Right.
Or is it that she hooked up with this dude and had this moment? And because she would have seen a lot of that if she was sitting on the porch.
Yeah,
and dropped her off right at the porch.
Yeah.
So is that she's made it because she's kissing another man?
Now you've met a second real man? Is that?
I don't even know.
Besides your father? I'm very confused, but none of it all was just like, I don't know. There's so many question marks. I believe, and I know this is not a universal opinion, but it is my opinion, that the goal is for your kids to have a better, easier life than you had before it. So I don't begrudge Preston feeling the need to pick his kids up when they fall. And I think the idea that we had to struggle and eat ramen and have no heat in our apartment is not a justification that our children should have to do the same. Why did you go make all of your money? Was it just so that you could live a nice life, or though that your family and your future generations could live a good life?
It's like they went too far, though. It's one thing to say, if they really were in an unheated apartment eating ramen, look at the house they live in now. It is not one step better. It is like a billion steps better than what she described her life as. If they only were like eating out at restaurants and all that kind of stuff versus your ramen noodles, like they're skipping the entire middle class portion. They're skipping the part where like you have enough money for groceries and you have a job that you're happy with and stuff like that. Like you went from this unheated ramen apartment to essentially bathing all day. Apparently, that's what you mostly do with your time.
For Manhattanites,
bathtub.
just hearing Upper East Side is code for, oh, okay, shit, you've got money. Think Gossip Girl, rich. That's Upper East Side.
I mean, like, look at that place. When they had her walking around, like, it was like a
Ivory
museum.
Tower much?
Like a sterile, yeah, and like a sterile, Ivory Tower is a great way to describe it. Not everybody needs that or wants that or thinks that is like the end all be all. I'm very confused about a lot of this. I mean, I think we've made that very clear to our listeners. And again, like the whole idea of like, we don't fight, so we have a perfect marriage. I'm like, you guys have had a lot of disagreements in the conversations you've had. Maybe you don't yell. Maybe you guys continue to talk, but you're not actually on the same page in any way.
In any way. You are fundamentally on different pages on key components of what a marriage is, namely parenting your children together. I don't know where Dallas and Abigail fall, because she mentions, I guess one of the things can do is continue co-parenting my kid. But certainly Preston and Stacey were not on the same page. So, yeah, again, this goes back to the people who say we never fight. Well, you're probably just not finishing you're either not talking at all or communicating well, or you're just not finishing your disagreements. You're just continuing on.
Bombs, and then they just walk away from it. That's it.
Back into the bathtub.
Yeah.
Or back to Montana, What
did you think about the two of them being in the bathtub?
I mean, it's Michelle Pfeiffer and Kurt Russell. If, they want to take a bath together, I'm not going to stop them. It feels like it was the continuation of the last conversation with the mansplaining, because they were in the bath. It was the same thing. He would have gotten into the tub. He eventually got into the tub in that conversation.
She seems like the type of person who would be like, "You gross, don't get in here." Like, you've got whatever, dirty hands or something. I don't freaking know. But that's the type of personality she's coming off with.
But there's a little hypocrisy there, though, because again, he's also the only real man you've ever met. So there's a part of that she appreciated the ruggedness and I don't know if she necessarily would appreciate dirt under the fingernails, but she liked the not polished version of him to an extent, but also didn't.
I did take a better look at what he was wearing and stuff, and he was wearing sort of this slightly more chic in terms of he did seem like he was wearing sort of more dress pants and a black mock turtleneck kind of thing, which is code for more sleek man wear. And they did do his hair a little bit more, I don't know, finished, I guess, if you will. But Kurt Russell's hair kind of always looks the same to me, which is
professionally ruffled.
Yeah, boyish, tousled kind of look. Yeah.
Let's talk about the suicide conversation, because I thought this was an interesting interlude in the episode. This is after Abigail is out of the car, before she calls Liliana to tell her to be here if you're my best friend, who says she'll be there the next day. Let's listen to this conversation between Cade and Stacey.
That sure is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
I'm not.
I got some experience with that solution. My father chose it. The thing about suicide no one talks about is that it's contagious. Lost a brother and an uncle before it was through with us.
I would never. My girls would never survive without me. They barely survive now.
Those things come in real handy when you surprise a bear, but that's about all they're good for. How would you feel about me hanging on to that until Grizzly makes you real angry?
Was she suicidal? That's the question. Was she really thinking about it in that moment after her argument with Abigail?
I do feel like it's Chekhov's gun in terms of you don't show it to us 2 times and have it not come into play. I don't think it necessarily needs to come into play suicide-wise. Maybe it is going to shoot a bear. Maybe that is going to be a big moment. I don't know.
Or a Russell or a grandchild.
Oh, God, I hope not. We've played around with that gun too much for it to not come into play. I kind of think it's tapping into the stages of grief and tapping into the, she's showing anger. She's doing a lot of good anger of our stages of grief. Even some denial when it came to identifying the bodies, sort of being maybe this isn't them. I don't really want to look and confirm that it is. She's done a lot of these different stages. I do think that she was feeling like she was at her wit's end there in the moment, because I'm going to go with a lot of what you were just saying. She was going against Preston's wishes. She did put her foot down in this very dramatic way that didn't even really make a lot of sense. I'm having a hard time getting to contemplating suicide. I am having a hard time, but I do think that if someone wrote down the beats of how does a family deal with grieving, one of those beats in the whole storyline would be one of the family members may consider suicide because they don't feel like they can handle dealing with this anymore. I don't know if it's going to be Stacey. I don't know if it's going to be one of the daughters. I don't know who it's going to be, but that could be a beat. And I think having Cade do the majority of the talking on that whole thing a little bit lets Stacey off the hook in terms of like, it was definitely Stacey, but it does shed light if you were a viewer saying like, man, I did stop and think like, I don't want to go on anymore if this person isn't in my life. It does acknowledge that viewer, right? It does give them that moment where you say this is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are this family member who is considering it, I'm talking to you right now. I don't know that it necessarily fits with our characters, but I do think it fits with the stages of grief and what people could experience.
Certainly because it also literally landed in her lap. Had she not found the gun just a few minutes earlier, would she have sought out a gun to sit and have that moment for that second? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it certainly was so convenient.
I don't know. That's why Chekhov's gun is more interesting.
Right. I'm glad Kate said the words, it's a very permanent solution to a temporary problem, without downplaying loss and grief. I mean, temporary, precedent's forever dead. So that is a permanent situation. But the mourning and the grief and the pain in the grand scheme of things is temporary, certainly more temporary than killing yourself. I thought it was interesting for him to say it's contagious, that it ended up that his father killed himself and it ended up taking an uncle and a brother. It was two family members in addition to. I had never heard suicide actually talked about that way, but if you think about it, and if you've ever been touched by it or just reading the news, we're going through a rash of it right now. There's something about hearing someone took their life. Maybe you never considered it, but now the words are in your head.
So I actually have had this experience because when I was in high school, there was a rash of kids who did commit suicide. And it was one of those situations where one did it. And then that concept of it being contagious, I don't know that what they were telling us as teenagers was the attention that person got, the outpouring of grief, the attention the family was getting, that kind of stuff can oddly stimulate other kids to want to do that too. What I can remember, though, is my principal coming on the PA system crying. This was a country man who had a big heart, though. He always had a big smile on and everything, but certainly a tougher cowboy kind of man. And he was bawling his eyes out, and he was pleading with us as kids, saying, "Stop it! Stop doing this! Please don't do this. This isn't the right way to go about it. Like, you can come talk with us. We can get help. Like, whatever you need." And I think oddly that struck me more than the suicides, because I hadn't had an adult be so vulnerable and so desperate, and that loss of control that clearly the adults had. They felt like these kids were just doing this and they couldn't figure out a way to stop them. So the contagious comment actually hit me really hard, and was the kind of thing that, like, do I think if Stacey did it, would Abby do it? Would I don't think Paige would do it, but would it be something that would continue on? I again, when we're talking about the beats of like what are the different stages of grief, if someone commits suicide, then the next beat is like, does that trickle to somebody else? And so do you know what you're doing when you even contemplate that? Do you understand that someone else in your family might then take their life? I mean, it's almost weird to be like, so do you want to be responsible for that? Like, it feels a little weird to be like that to the person considering suicide. But at the same time, it's like, I guess it just sort of highlights like this affects so many more people than just you. So think about that before you make that choice. I thought it was pretty great that Cade actually went through the trouble of taking it, and then saying, I'm going to follow you now. Right. So like basically I can keep a better eye on you, not let you go drive yourself off the side of the road or do something. The village, if you will, the quote unquote village is showing up for this family.
It really is.
They really are, not just open, with food,
open arms, full open arms. I mean,
talking about the stuff that needs to be talked about, saying the uncomfortable things.
I was really touched by Van's comment. There was no reason for him to do this. He didn't know this woman. He was picking her up because Cade asked him to. But I appreciated his comment, understanding her situation without her having to say it. If I lost a loved one who lived in New York City, I would be a lot more lost than you are now. I thought that was actually a really nice comment. And just for the sake of you're doing better than you think you are, it's,
Yeah. And that this would be hard for anybody.
Right.
Anybody. Even
Right.
if I look like a big, strong lawman, I would be struggling. And so you're not less than, you're
Or
not,
alone.
a bad person. Right. All the things like you can be a strong person and struggle.
Yeah. The last thing I want to mention with Stacy and the truck, and this is Paul's truck that she picks up, is when she was in the Bonneville County Clerk's office. When she's pulling out all those papers, I thought to myself, and I have it in my notes, I was like, why is there so much paperwork in death? Why? It's so odd that there's so much paperwork that we're expected to keep track of. And then Kate says that to her literally after he takes the gun. He's like, that shouldn't be your job. Your job should just be missing the person missing your loved one. But there is so much paperwork. It's an odd thing in our society.
Yeah, but it's real.
I
It's
know,
so real.
I know.
And I mean, it's something that I was talking with you about, like, after my mom passed, it seems so morbid, but like we actually kept like copies of her death certificate right out on the kitchen counter all the time because we kept needing it all the time. It just became like a fixture of the kitchen, just having and that's mom's death certificates, right over there because we had a bunch of copies. They were totally right about when they said you get it from the funeral director. That was all accurate information, at least with my experience, and how often you were asked. And I was actually struck, and they actually had this moment. It was very, very quiet. But when she got out the first death certificate and then said wrong one, it was so quiet. It was so quiet. But it was, and I don't mean volume wise, I mean like there wasn't a lot of attention put on it remember Paul?
Right.
Remember Paul died too? There was actually more than one person. We're actually grieving in theory, though this family kind of isn't grieving Paul. In theory, we're grieving more than one loss. Again, I struggled with Stacy because, then the officer's like, we're all praying for you. And she said, praying for what? And okay, all right, we're going to be a little spicy about it. And then she said, praying for peace. I don't know what Stacy's sort of motive was to say, it's not working. I don't really know. I get it that she's not at peace. It's very clear she's not at peace. It's very clear to the officer. That's why they were trying to send.
Again, the village was trying to show sympathy and empathy.
After you just have this entire conversation with Abby, you shame the grandkids, you say the words, when someone tries to do something kind for you, you accept it, right?
Right.
2 seconds later, someone is saying, we're thinking about you. And if people have a problem with the word praying, fine. But we're thinking about you, and we're hoping that you come to a place of peace. Okay, that takes all the religion out of it if it bothers you to hear that. To be snotty back at that is like you are the biggest hypocrite in the world. You just screamed at these other people. You called people bitches over this. And then now an adult says to you, we're thinking about you and we're really hoping that you guys can come to a place of peace with everything that's happened. And you're going to be mean? Oh, man, I don't know how seriously I can take you anymore,
Right before their epic fight, Paige calls Abigail a juice cleansing hypocrite. I think she has an F word in there too.
Right.
But Stacy is the hypocrite. Stacy is repeatedly showing herself to be a do as I say, not as I do person. And I think that was a great example of where is your kindness? Where is your accepting kindness? I get you're in a bad place. That doesn't give you carte blanche to be an asshole. I think this line was set up more about city people and people not from the city. You and I recently were actually having a very long conversation about how people can be uncomfortable with the idea of God bless you or praying for you, as if it is some kind of storming the gates on your personhood. And I don't understand it.
Or it's forcing religion on you, I think, is the big
big there's
term.
some indoctrination happening here, which is not how Charlene, the county clerk, meant it, Stacy.
I don't think she did.
Get out of your ass. Your head out of your ass.
No, I agree. And listen, she was clearly upset by this whole thing. This was another one of those times, kind of like Identifying the Body, where I understand a flood of emotions, but I had a hard time with the vitriol that came with it. I'm going to say this very tiny moment. When she first goes out to Paul's car, sees the 2 coffee cups, and basically does like the touchdown spike the football with the coffee cups into the trash can. There's a lot of people who would have looked at those 2 coffee cups, maybe even touched the one in the passenger side, maybe even zoom in on her fingers touching the top of the lid, like thinking like
This is the last physical reminder of your husband.
Yes. And
I thought it was actually a nice moment, but yeah.
But not what she did.
No, she did spike them.
It could have been a nice moment. There was potential for like even a flashback of them going to get coffee, even a flashback, even like a 1-second flashback of showing Paul and Preston laughing in the truck, drinking those cups. There's definitely like a whole part of that I feel like we kind of missed out on because she decided, or the writers decided, or Taylor decided that instead she was going to be outraged again. Are we outraged that the cops didn't throw away the cups? Are we outraged that once again we're reminded that these 2 guys were up here drinking coffee, having fun? Where is that outrage coming from?
Let's think about that. Because when Paige and Abigail get into that fight, Stacy's the one who breaks it up. She actually dumps water. Maybe she meant to dump it on both of them to break them up, but she actually ends up just dumping it completely on Abigail. But in any case, it ends the fight. And she says, I'm so happy you two have found something to be passionate about, whether, even though it seems to be hating each other. I wish you had a fraction of that passion in mourning or being sad about the death of your father. And then we have these kinds of things, like it's not working to the clerk and the coffee cup spiking and all of the other anger outbursts that we've seen Stacy have. Because when Stacy goes outside and Russell says, well, what is it okay in there? He's like, no, Russell, it's not okay. There's a lot of emotions and there's no place to put them. And I think she's right. But you just told your daughters that they weren't having emotion about it. Clearly, they're fist fighting. Some of that is being upset and anger and emotion about their father being dead. You are clearly angry at Preston on some level, from the I told you so, honey, to the coffee cups, to the it's not working. You put all the pieces together. Stacy, you have a lot of emotion that you're feeling that is not being placed correctly. You, I think, very clearly have some anger to Preston. Maybe you're mad at him for being here and dying in a fucking Cessna on a mountainside, which is fair, but don't keep shooting everyone. It's the, 4 fingers out, 1 point, or shit, what is it?
Whatever we decided, 3 and 2.
Three back at you, 1 out, and 1 up to God, right? I think that's what we said.
Whatever it is.
Right? Like, you're doing a lot of that. You're doing you. No, Stacy, you. You're the lightning rod here. This is your show. The monkeys are in your circus. They're taking lead from you. You need to work on your anger. You need to examine why you're so mad.
I honestly believe that when Abby slaps Paige and she says, you can't talk to my children like that, she was slapping Stacy metaphorically, because they just had the whole thing the previous day about saying bitches and saying all this stuff into into the kids' faces and all that. So Paige was like really, really just getting the shit rolls downhill because Abby was so pissed at Stacy. Like, I do not believe in any way that the juice fasting comment and saying fuck, hello, her mother has said it 1,000 times. She was yelling at them at the dinner table in New York City. Like, she was using language the whole time. And all of a sudden, we're going to beat someone's ass for saying bad language in front of the kids.
And it's about, like, you can't talk to me in front of my daughters, especially that way. Later that night, when Stacy goes in the main cabin to have their indigenous tacos, they're talking about where is Abigail. Stacy makes a comment to Abigail's daughters, essentially calling their mother a liar. Your mother's relationship with the truth is like unparalleled or something like that.
Yes.
What? Ooh. That's not okay. What? How do you not see your shitty behavior? You're so quick to call it out in everyone else. You're throwing people out of the fucking truck. Hold your fucking tongue. No wonder these two are rolling around beating the shit out of each other.
Although, God, honestly, I was shocked. That was an insane fight. Okay,
Insane.
First of all, I've never laid hands on my siblings being an adult. Okay, when we were little kids, like my brother and I are only 5 years apart. We absolutely like wrestled around and stuff, but never like slapping or like whatever, like kind of pushing, shovey, whatever, something like that. Right when we were little. But my sister is 8 years older than me, and we're probably a little more like Paige and Abby, and I can't even imagine. That was not just like a shove, which a shove would have sort of been warranted. Picking Paige up and throwing her into like the hutch. Like that was, I don't know if they even meant for that fight to come off that violent.
They could have easily really killed each other. They were rolling around on like really sharp ceramic and glass.
And it also seemed like Paige had a cut across her nose. Like, It was like, I have a broken nose right now, and I have that same cut across my nose. And I'm like thinking, are you kidding me? Did they just break Paige's nose? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I honestly, there was a moment I was like, is she gonna try and stab her with one of those shards? Because it was right by her hand, the shard of like ceramic. Like that was the craziest level fight for siblings I have ever seen, especially for these two people from the city who have clearly never done this before. Maybe the point was they had this pent up emotion. And I like the idea of there's a lot of emotion and they don't know where to place it. When she says that to Russell, when Stacey says that to Russell outside, I was like, yeah, no, that feels right. They're all vibing from you, though. Stacey not seeing her role in the atmosphere and vibes of this family is hypocritical, and it is inexcusable.
I agree with all of those things. Also, I would have liked it if they took like 5 minutes to have Abby ask Van, like, is there someplace I can buy dishes? And like have gone and like bought another set of dishes. Because in all reality, that place, even though I know we were given the idea that Preston bought games and toys and things for the kids, and maybe he had the forethought to buy a whole extra set of dishes because they would have more than
those kinds of things.
Well, that if they would have more than 2 people, but there's a fair chance that Paul only owned a couple of glasses and a couple of plates, and we just watched them break a bunch of them. I would have liked it if there was some amount of like, even when she was sitting around talking to Kestrel and Cade and hanging out with Van and watching the kids, ask them, is there someplace that I can buy, you know, some cups and dishes and stuff? You know, some things got broken the last couple of days. Whatever you say, come back to that and have it mean something. Have there be some amount of like, not just like, yes, they swept and they mopped together. And so that was some sort of like, I don't know what we're calling that, some bonding or something. I don't know. But like, I would have liked to have seen there be some follow up to like make the fight mean something. Make that amount of violence turn into Abby taking care of the group in a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it have consequences.
The only net effect of it is it seemed to put Paige in her place. She was viewing the ma'am, and that it was after that she went in the river and she was doing her work and she was embracing the baking soda. So maybe the effect of the fight actually did work for Paige in getting her head right. They were both cleaning after their mother yelled at them. But like Paige, I mean, she like had the lowered eyes, like a real beaten dog kind of thing, like, you know, where you scolded it and now it's like the eyes are downcast and she's saying ma'am and this.
When she said ma'am, that definitely, like, Stacey's face, like, completely changed. That was a really good Michelle Pfeiffer micro expression where it wasn't big at all, but it definitely crossed, like, there was acknowledgement of, like, she just said ma'am to me, you know?
I want to highlight the Stacey words here only because we've been talking about these concepts in all 3 of these episodes. When she's yelling at them and handing them the broom and the cleaning up, she says, not your house. This is my house. And like, unlike my other house, I'm going to make you clean up the mess.
Clean it the fuck up. That's the word she said.
Right. My house, though. Not Preston's house anymore, because it used to be Preston it was my house, my money, my money. But now Stacey saying it's my house. And also, by the way, Stacey, they're all your houses. Dallas is your house. Abigail's is your house. I presume the Soho apartment where Paige and Russell live is also your house. They're all your houses. You're just choosing now to enforce these rules because, again, part of her arc in this episode was Preston's gone, and so now I can do things my way, which again goes towards how great was your marriage if this is how you have to proceed?
I think it's all wild. Everyone needs to settle down. And now I'm going to say, clean it the fuck up. It's like you continue to raise the volume in the room while continuously telling everybody to cool it. It's like, what are you doing? That pouring water on somebody, that is such a TV thing.
Yes.
Like, have you ever seen that happen in real life? Have you ever seen anyone get the hose turned on them in real life when someone's fighting? I've never actually seen that, but it is definitely TV trope for this is the only way to quote unquote cool people off is to
if they had a hose available,
water.
there would have been a hose pulled on them for sure.
Yes, if they were outside, it definitely would have been a hose.
I think the only last thing is really, I'm just curious, what are your takes? Because I don't think he's going anywhere, and I think he's probably only going to have more of a role. What is your take on Mr. Van Davis, Deputy Sheriff Van Davis of the Madison County Sheriff's Department?
Well, I thought he had a very sexy voice. I'll go with that. I liked the tone of his voice. I thought it was very attractive. He seems really young to me. He seemed younger to me than Abby. It was very clear with the whole 11 and 14 that he was at least in his 30s. We assume, although I don't know.
Ben Schnetzer is playing Van Davis, and he was born in 1990.
I'm fine with Abby and him getting involved. I thought that his part where he said that his wife died was wildly unemotional. The way that he said it, just so matter of fact, like, she's dead. It was so, I don't know, without any real care. And even sort of blaming her for her own death, being like, she had no business doing that and blah, blah, blah. I was like, this is wild. And I guess, again, everybody deals with death differently. Everybody deals with spouses passing away differently. I guess maybe we're just showing another way. Here's Stacey being angry and full of fire and just anger all the time. Here's Van saying it like it's happening to someone else. Like it was super matter of fact, like, yep, she's dead. Woof. How did you feel about that? That
didn't bump on me. It was kind of like how Kate talked about Kestrel, like she was a barrel racer, he was a bronc rider. And like she's full of piss and vinegar and she's a wild one. I felt like Van seems much more like the way he kind of talks with his jaw kind of tight and closed. And so everything kind of comes out a little bit forced with his manner of speaking. I think he was speaking glowingly of her. He called her like fire, right? Like she lived like fire. The fact that it was a tipped over ATV is a wild death for TV to portray. Like, I mean, that happens in real life. It happens where I am all the time, unfortunately. It's very sad, but I've never heard about it as a TV death used, I don't think. I actually bumped more about how Abby hearing this immediately makes a, I wish he was dead comment about her ex-husband. And he's like, no, you don't. Like, she didn't even realize how tone deaf that comment was. Like, he's just telling you about his wife who died. And he's a widow, and you're making a comment of like, oh, I wish my husband was dead. This family is very tone deaf.
Well, we both like picked up on different aspects of that conversation, because that's funny, because I wasn't focused on her comment at all. I was still reeling with the like, she's dead. Oh, geez. Like, I would hope that my spouse would never refer to me. I don't care how many years it's been. I don't care what kind of accident it was. Most people say passed away when it's the person who they love. They don't say she's dead. What? But so, yeah, I didn't bump on the Dallas was dead part at all. So funny. We definitely hit two different parts of that conversation.
A couple of little silly things. I don't understand why Russell can't explain pinball. I haven't seen
use the word pinball,
or
just
use
say
the word
pinball.
Like, he was making it so convoluted about a game from the West or whatever the fuck he was saying. Like, it's pinball.
That was so weird.
It's so weird.
I believe New York City has pinball machines. I don't think
pinball
it's a game
is literally
from the
my
West.
favorite form of video game. Like,
right.
They still exist. Also, and this is for the eagle-eyed viewers, maybe you guys have noticed it, where are the electricity lines? Because the pinball machine was just running. It wasn't like unplugged. And there was like a big, nice light fixture over their pool table. And I guess they have light in the cabins. Obviously, we've kept hearing about, there's a light on the cabin and it's not candles. But where are the electricity lines? This feels so remote. I haven't noticed the electricity lines. So, eagle-eye viewers, if you've seen the electricity lines, point them out to us. Another question, why was a Madison County, Montana sheriff hanging out in Idaho Falls at the Bonneville County Courthouse, which, by the way, is 3 hours away? Wrong state, 3 hours away. Why was Van hanging out there?
Good question.
Good question. I don't know.
That's a weird one. So everything that we saw at the ranch at Cade and Kestrel's, it's not their ranch, but we believe they live on the grounds there. I actually thought that ranch was very beautiful. I thought that the white buildings and everything that was built out there, I kind of wanted Abby to have a moment where she was like, you know, Mom's comment that these people have like no money is like not freaking true. Like this is actually like a very built up ranch with like a lot of different things going on here. I thought Cade and Kestrel were good parents from what I could see. They weren't really reactive to everything. I like that Van clearly had like a long friendship with them where he was like, oh, he'll put them right. The kids will go right down. They'll come right back out. Like, again, I kind of feel like that was like signs of like good parenting, like, and that these kids were good kids and that they were going to listen to their parents and head right to bed. And there wasn't going to, he didn't say something like, oh God, bedtime takes 5 hours because these kids are going to talk back and they're going to have to do all this. Like, no, it sounded like their life was like pretty easy going and the kids were really good kids and everybody sort of did what they needed to do. What was your vibe of that ranch since we sort of got a little bit of a glimpse there?
Oh, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was I thought the riding ring was really pretty.
What do you think about the snake? Was that like a good, just sort of like, we need to learn about the land?
Right. The education estate of Abigail, right? If they're clearly starting to lay the lines of where Abigail, independent of her mother, is like, maybe I could make a life out here. You know, this is what a real man looks like. And now I know that, you know, snakes that aren't rattlesnakes are not bad because they keep the rats down, which bring the rattlesnakes. You know, so I think it was a little bit of like the education of, you know, miseducation of Abigail Clyburn.
No, Abigail Reese.
Oh, Reese. Sure. Right. Married name. I think it's interesting that their kids' names were Kayla. All right. Nice name. Tony, and totally normal name. Spade. Spade, put down the snake. Of course it's Spade playing with the snake. But I mean, Tony was trying to lasso the dog, which made me laugh, but Spade is the one playing with the snake, which feels right.
That's all funny.
I don't know. Is Kestrel also have some maybe Native American aspect to her, which I thought that would then make the Indian tacos comment from the first episode even more ironic. I felt like there was some Native American aspect there.
I kind of thought so too. And actually, Van, there was different points in the way that he was talking that actually it wasn't all the time, but there was different times when he was speaking that I felt like, because we have spent time with Rainwater and his family over on Yellowstone, that I was like thinking like, does he have sort of like an accent or sort of like the cadence in which he speaks that sounds a little bit like Native American? I was trying to sort of pick that up a little bit, but it wasn't all the time. So maybe that made me think like maybe it was a grandfather, or maybe it was something that like you pick up a little bit of it, but I mean, his name is Van Davis, and so that there's no, we don't have any name.
Maybe he's going to be Kestrel's brother. Maybe that's going to be the connection.
Maybe. Although they didn't act brother and sister to me.
They didn't.
There wasn't any of that to me. And he seemed like he was just Cade's friend because, you know, because.
Oh, that's right. Because they had the comment like, don't bring over beer.
Don't bring beer because my wife will be pissed, basically. Yeah. And so, but maybe that's the kind of stuff you say if that is your sister. You'd be like, I can't help you. Haha. If she beats you up, whatever. You know, like, I don't know.
The point being they're all close knit, right? Which was one of the comments that Abigail makes in the truck with Van. Is like, everyone knows everyone. And he's like, it's not a high bar. He's like, that's not such a great accomplishment. So
that's funny. That is funny. What did you think about when they were asking about the school and the fact that it sounds like it's like a one-room schoolhouse situation?
A very little house on the prairie. But I think that was interesting because clearly, I understand the boarding school commentary, but the fact that she asked that question, I think in hindsight telegraphed where her mind was going. She didn't just decide in the car in the middle of that ride to start having that ultimatum. She was ruminating on that. All of this was a setup to get Abigail in the car alone so she could lay this trap on her. And I think that comment about what is life like out here in the schools was her telegraphing what was already in her brain for coming later.
Yeah. And I liked how they explained it, actually. I like that it was like, you know, the little kids, you know, are around.
It's the Montessori way, right? I mean,
very much. The whole idea that everybody's helping everybody else and there's all like a point to it. And I mean, I appreciated that. I think from, you know, the Sheridan writing room, I feel like there's like a lot of him trying to say like, there's value in doing things differently. Like we were talking a lot about private schools. We've talked a lot about boarding schools. Now I'm also going to tell you about what good. And they also made fun of public school in New York City. Like they managed to do that in this episode.
I mean, just dismissed it. Public school in the village.
So give us a little insight. What
New York
is
City
that? What does it mean?
New York City has some of the best public schools actually in the country. Like there are several schools that you hear about and people go like, oh shit, you went there? And it's a public school. It's hard to get into. You have to take a test to get into there, but it's a public school. You know, I don't know particularly the village, but like Greenwich Village is a pretty well moneyed area nowadays. So I can't imagine it would be a bad school. It would probably be what Taylor Sheridan would refer to as progressive or a woke school, I am sure.
Okay.
But ideology wise, because of the denizens of the area, but I'm sure it's actually a very good school. I didn't look up.
That's
the stats,
good to know. I had no idea what. I mean, not having lived up there.
Yeah,
I
so
had no
there's
idea
two villages in Manhattan.
What it meant.
You have East Village, which used to be a very rough area, like around the time when the musical Rent was making, like that happens in like the way East Village, but it's been gentrified to hell and it's not a bad area now. But then you have what people just call the Village, which is also called the West Village or Greenwich Village. This is a very nice area. It's right by NYU, a lot of money, very expensive townhomes and apartments. So yeah, if you're living in the Village, you're doing okay in my book. So
then there was no real reason for
just
Preston
it
to
being
be down
public. I think that was no matter where it was. I mean, he threw in the Village there, like that added something. But I think the dismissiveness was at it being a public school. Yeah. Are you excited to see Liliana out in the wild? I mean, I'm assuming episode 4 is going to introduce her. She's going to be arriving, and do you think that's going to be a help or a hurt to Stacey's plans?
I'm super curious how it will affect the group because we have been living in sort of a vacuum. You know, this episode brought in Cade and Van and Kestrel and, you know, and this idea that like maybe the kids over at their ranch could hang out with the kids over on our ranch, you know, so we sort of started to invite people, but we haven't had, you know, a New York City influence come into their mix again and maybe be perhaps a voice of their old life, you know, for Stacey to be challenged about some of this stuff. Like, Stacey, are you sure this is what you want to do? I'm not sure about the all or nothing nature of all of this stuff. We talked about it a little bit in previous episodes. Like they could have just, you know, chosen to cremate both Paul and Preston and then choose how to handle that land and take steps, you know, small steps. The whole like, I'm going to live full time in Montana. That doesn't seem necessary in any way. She could downsize that townhome. Was enormous. Surely she could downsize it and beef up the ranch so that it's more comfortable for the family to be out there and then do like a 6 months, like live out there, you know, maybe May to September or something out in Montana, but do the rest of the time in New York City, something to where like, you know, Abby questioned her, like, are you going to be out here chopping wood? She had no answer for that, by the way.
She did not. She had no answer for any of the very valid comments that Abigail was bringing up in a car about you have no friends, you have no sewage, you have no chopping wood skills, like... You're hiding. Like we papered over that and stuff a little bit, but like Stacey had no response for any of that. Her response was, we're not talking about me, we're talking about you.
Yeah, it's all just shut up.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Shut up about that.
Right. She said the debate about what I am going to do is over. Stacey, there was no debate. You just dictated to everyone what you were going to do. You didn't actually listen to any of your children at all.
That's the question mark about Liliana. Like she's actually asking her to come out there, which is interesting, right? She didn't say, Stacey, I'm coming out there. Give me the address right now. I'm coming now. If that's not how it happened, Stacey asked her to come. Secondarily, will Liliana provide a sounding board, a mirror held up to Stacey, pushback on like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I actually hope she brings some clothes and some real shoes and some other things for Stacey. That would all be nice. And maybe the other kids and everybody else could use some other clothes. Other people are wearing jackets and sweatpants and sweatshirts and stuff. And then you have like the teenager, however old she is, wearing like a crop top.
Right.
I think it'd be pretty chilly. Yeah. You know, like I'm kind of curious about that. But also she, I hope, won't have the same snotty remarks to her best friend. I hope this gives us a chance to see Stacey more vulnerable, more honest. allowing herself to be challenged, because surely she can't say to Liliana, thank you for coming. I will not discuss anything with you. Shut up. You know? Like,
yeah, my guess is going to be more she's going to have the same attitude she's been having, but Liliana, not being a child, is going to be like, check your shit.
Do you think?
Who do you... that would be my guess for how it would play out. Because I think Stacey has lost I think she's lost the thread on all of this.
Though she's the first one to say that she's the only one who has the thread.
Right. But I think she needs a friend. Because she's going to try, like, the debate about what I'm going to do is over to her friend. She's going to be like, bitch, I just got here. We haven't had a debate yet. Like, I flew out here for you, right. So we will discuss. Which I think a child would be hesitant to say. A best friend who's as rich or you know, equally rich and whatever, who flew across the country to come when you said get here and I said tomorrow, that person's going to have some things to say and probably not be kowtowed. At least I hope anyway.
I agree. I'm very much looking forward to episode 4 because I want to see someone start to challenge Stacey, who I think is more on her level because she's been treating everyone else like they're beneath her. I need somebody to step up to her face and say, hey, I just got here. Ma'am, you're going to need to explain like your thinking and hopefully gain some insight into a more vulnerable version of Stacey where we're not just lashing out. Again, maybe Liliana probably knew Preston. At least maybe they went out as couples or whatever, or knew some stuff. Maybe we get a little bit more, you know, exposition about like their relationship from the outside. Maybe it even gives an opportunity for Liliana to ask some questions about Paul and say like, you know, you never really talk about him. What's his deal? And maybe this gives us an opportunity for Stacey to say, oh, here's what happened with Paul and here's his backstory. Because right now it seems like the family already knows it. So I don't know how anyone's going to tell it to us unless we've got this outside party to ask. Fingers crossed, looking forward to Liliana coming to provide a little bit more depth to the story and be able to ask more questions than the family's been able to get answers for. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to The Madison. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, if you could, please leave us a 5-star review. If you do leave us a 5-star review and you say something nice, we're going to read on the air. We're going to say your name. It's going to be wonderful. We're all going to cheer and go, wah, 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 and everyone's going to be happy.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.